ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यस्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्रचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ वर्स 31 आविद्यकं शरीरादि दृश्यं बुद्बुदवत्क्षरम् एतद्विलक्षणं विद्यात् अहं ब्रह्मेति निर्मलम्. So, we have seen in this Mahavakya the 8 factors are mithya, on 4 from each side. So, basically 4 from the mixture of jiva, which is a mixture of 5 things. 4 are, well, we have to discard. I mean, discard means we have to understand them as a mithya. And Ishvara also is a mixture of 5 things and compose it. And so there also 4 things have to be well understood as a mithya. So that is what we have seen in the last class. Basically Sharira Trayam, all the 3 bodies, and that is that all the 3 are reflecting mediums for the consciousness. And definitely reflection also will be formed. So reflection, all the 3 bodies, and consciousness, limitless consciousness. Well, all these 5, out of that, well, consciousness alone is the reality, and reflection and reflecting medium, both are mithya. Same way from Ishvara also, prapanchatraya, well, sthula prapancha, sukshma prapancha, and karana prapancha, and well, consciousness reflected in that, which is called Ishvara. So that reflected consciousness, which is a macro consciousness, a macro reflection, bigger reflection, because it is the reflection has been in the bigger medium called prapancha. So basically they are also the reflecting medium, and all the 3 prapanchas, well, they are mithya. So this is how we should understand. And then both the sides, well, definitely you will get a tvampada lakshyartha from the after removing these 4 things, and that is consciousness. And here tatpada lakshyartha also will be consciousness, and well, they can be equated. They are equal, they are one, rather equal. Why should we say equal? They are one. One consciousness alone, well, they are due to the difference in the reflecting medium. Well, they appear as a different reflections, and so reflections are different because the mediums are different, and therefore definitely there was a difference between jiva and Ishvara from the standpoint of a reflection, not from the standpoint of a consciousness. And therefore reflections are mithya, and therefore there is really no difference between jiva and Ishvara. And from the standpoint of reflection, there is a difference. So shariradi avidyakam, shariradi, this sharira, etc. Well, and we have to say prapancha. Adi padat we have to take prapancha. So sharira, prapancha, etc. Avidyakam, born of Maya, basically, born of Prakriti. We have seen that in Fortunately, it is going on Panchadashi also, so we know very well. It is born of Prakriti. And it is comparable to the dream world. These three bodies and three, of course, Prapancha Trayam also, the world also, everything born, it is comparable to a dream world. From the waker's ignorance, how a dreamer body, all the three bodies are born. Dreamer, three bodies are born, not just physical body. You find dreamer conscious, right? A dreamer is a conscious entity in a dream and experiencing different objects of the dream world. Therefore, subtle body is there, and causal body also is there, and consciousness, that is waker, basically gets reflected into it. And dreamer says, I am. Afterwards, whatever says belong to dream. But I am what he says as a conscious entity, that is a waker. So, waker's consciousness alone manifests in the dreamer's body. Could you follow? So, that is how, and then experience of dream world. But ultimately, everything has come from the waker, ignorance of the waker. And so, everything is Mayikam, born of avidya. So, avidyakam, the three bodies of the dreamer and all the three worlds, whatever, Sthula Prapancha, Sukshma Prapancha and Karana Prapancha, whatever is there, in dream world. All this basically born of a avidya of the waker. So definitely, how can you say Swamiji avidya of a waker? Basically, waker has gone to sleep, and ignorance has covered his nature, and so waker doesn't know that I am a waker now. And so there is a total ignorance. From that blankness, ignorance, all dream world comes, and therefore whatever is in the dream is called avidyakam, born of avidya, born of sleep, avidya. And budbudhavat ksharam, and that is really true. In a dream, everything is like a bubble. Oh, so many things we create, I create a pani puri wala, and I create a chapati and what not. And everything I create. I create that beach also, and I create ocean. Within no time, everything goes. Budbudhavat ksharam. And ksharam, fleeting. It is very fleeting. And drishyam, definitely everything is drishyam. And therefore, so same here also, same way in a waking state, everything is budbudhavat. Actually, everything is like a bubble. And from the standpoint of astronomical time, everything is really. I have given you the example of Ravana, right? When in the Brahmaloka, these devatas were taking some lessons from, they were attending some class of a Brahmaji. And then Brahmaji was teaching, and devatas were listening very carefully. And suddenly from the earth they heard a voice from the below. And that is earth. They heard a voice, boom, like that. They heard, and then they asked Brahmaji, what has happened? So he said, Ravana was born. Okay, let's do our things, anyway. And then as he uttered another word, Brahmaji uttered another word. By the time, again, boom. And then again, the Devatas asked, what has happened? Someone else born? No, Ravana gone. So this is how it is. So from the Brahmaloka's time, this earth's time is just a moment, really. One day of Brahmaji means I have told you, right? That not I have told you, it is told by Bhagavan in Bhagavad Gita. So basically, 2000 Chatur Yugas, and one Chatur Yuga is 43,20,000 years, and multiply 1000, and multiply by 2. This many years is a Brahmaji's day. And you can understand Brahmaji's second will be how much. And that counts several hundred years of a human life. And therefore that's true that Ravana born and gone. That is how it is. Just everything is born and gone. Whole thing. In fact, those stars, etc., they explode. And from the astronomical time, they say few billion years. They say like that, few billion years. A billion years means what? But anyway, this is how the things are. Anyway, so the prapancha, the world, etc., is also like a bubble, and the bodies are, etc., also like a bubble. So why do you claim this dot of a matter which sustains for a for a very very short period of life? So they are mithya. What comes and go well, comes and goes, well, definitely it is mithya and it is not my intrinsic nature. I have explained you from my three states of experiences. It is very clear that no one is really my good companion which will remain throughout with me. No one. And therefore, definitely, and this, therefore, I am not either of the three bodies, and not I am either of the, I mean, anyway, I'm not a reflected consciousness also. Regarding this Chidabhasa, we'll have to discuss few more points, but that we'll see little later. Now, so they are subject to arrival in Jagrat and Swapna, the bodies and the reflected consciousness, etc. In Sushupti, well, they resolve. They remain unmanifest. That is how it is. Resolve means you can understand. Nothing goes. Nothing goes to a non-existent thing. Only thing is goes to unmanifest. Even Chidabhasa also not totally resolution. We don't think Chidabhasa vanishes. Chidabhasa will not go. That's a big discussion even in Panchadashi, that between a discrimination between Chid and Chidabhasa. Very beautiful description. Of course, we will have a long time because it's in chapter 8. But then, very beautifully, the Chidabhasa, Vidyaranya has proved Chidabhasa also. From certain experiences, he said this belongs to Chidabhasa and this belongs to Chit, and that is how both the things are there and they can never separate also. We'll see that. Anyway, so basically, I am an original consciousness which sustain everything, all the bodies and the Chidabhasa, everything. And they are all subject to arrival and departure. Either they become unmanifest in Sushupti or they become manifest in Jagrat and Swapna, etc. But they can't be my real nature. They are all agantuk. We call them incidental. They come and go. When they come, I am there to welcome them. And when they go, well, they leave me dejected. And therefore, this is, I am there in absence of them. So, well, in waking state, I can say I can put on a costume of a ego, waker, dreamer, etc. And in deep sleep state, I can, put aside this costume. So, etad vilakshanam, I am different from these 8 factors. So I am Adhisthana Chaitanyam. And what is my nature? Nirmalam. I don't have any samsara, anything at all. I don't have anything which is causing suffering to me. It causes suffering to me thinking that they are in me or they are me. And therefore, well, don't think at all. You are free from samsara at this moment. Even if you don't know. Even if you don't attend class, you are not going to be samsari. And therefore, you are free. But so to know that you have to attend class, what can we say? So this is how it is. Therefore, Vidya, may you know that you are free from samsara. You are nirmalam. You are free from any kind of impurity. Malam means impurity. Malam actually belongs to even all the 3 bodies also. We say malam belong to, generally malam means basically impurity means our mind, basically subtle body. But gross body has also a lot of malam. In fact, whole thing is malam. Because of consciousness, it has a purity, really speaking. The day even the Chidabhasa leaves it along with the subtle body, this gross body is most impure thing. It has to be burnt, really. Otherwise, it will spread diseases in other things. And otherwise also, right now also it has a lot of impurity. I don't want to discuss those things. But anyways, and the subtle body, mind, etc. has so much of raga and dvesha and kama and krodha and so many. And avidya, well, karana shariram itself is an impurity. Where is the question of karana sharira as an impurity? All the things, all the karmas are impurity. All sanchita is impurity. That is going to give rise to all phalam. In terms of body and in terms of experiences and all. And all our vasanas, basically, this is good, this is bad, all stored from anadi kala. And so, this all, karana shariram has tremendous impurity. And avidya is basically impure, basic impurity. And so all the 3 bodies also we can say. Nirmalam means I am free from the impurities of all the 3 bodies, because I am free, distinct from 3 bodies, and therefore I am free from the impurities of 3 bodies also. And so, with this, Shravanam and Mananam part is over. And now we have started from verse number 16 to verse number 31. We have finished Shravanam and Mananam. from verse number 32 to verse number 42, we will have to discuss Nididhyasana. And from these verses, from verse 16 to verse 31, Shankaracharya ji has, composed these verses, and he assumes that we have completed several sessions of Shravanam and Mananam, and we have thoroughly gained this knowledge, doubtless knowledge. Definitely we have a doubtless knowledge. Now this teaching what we have got must enter in our subconscious mind. It is there right now in conscious mind. If I ask you few things out of this last 15 days classes, you may be able to take few things here and there. That shows it is in your conscious mind, right there. But basically it has to percolate, drop by drop, into subconscious mind. And the process by which this knowledge percolates from a conscious mind to the subconscious mind is Nididhyasana. Why it should go to the subconscious mind? Because all our reactions are born from the subconscious mind. That is how consciously you may say that I don't want to get angry and this and that, and so much of understanding you will have in a conscious mind. But when a situation arises, suddenly suddenly worry comes, and suddenly anger comes, and suddenly everything, it just comes. That shows it is coming not from the conscious mind, it is coming from the subconscious mind. So all these instinctive responses, comes from our inner mind or subconscious mind. Especially when crisis comes, fear, anxiety, worry, etc. continues. Worry will be there all the time. Whatever you have studied, suppose I tell you, you are Asanga, and you can understand, consciousness is limitless. Limitless thing cannot have any kind of a relationship with anything. And the example also is there in front of you, that is space. That space is almost limitless, and I could see that the space has no relation with everything. Space accommodates everything, but it is not related to anything. And therefore, same way, if consciousness is limitless, it is free from any relationship. But that is all in conscious mind. Immediately as you become free in the waking state from your daily activity, you start worrying about the child. Immediately starts, and so much worry comes. So that shows you take yourself a related person. It may be father, mother, or anything. And so any situation, while crisis, even without that also, without crisis also, as we become free in the waking state, immediately worry starts. So conscious mind is full of this. Consciousness is limitless, and consciousness is asangam and unconnected, and everything is here. But the response comes from a very instinctive response, comes from the inner mind, that is subconscious mind. And fear also comes. However you understand, consciousness is timeless. Swamiji said correct. I am conscious of time. Time is not conscious of me. In absence of time, I exist, and therefore I am not subject to birth and death. This and that. Everything is there. But something happens, and you are sitting in a sofa, and you have found a small tumor here in the hand. And then you started, doing like this, and gone. Immediately. Maybe tumor, maybe carcinogenic or benign, I don't know, except this. Shuru. So, all our instinctive responses are coming from subconscious mind. Even immediately after class it could happen. After the class you are sitting in a sofa thinking that let me do Nididhyasana, and your hand goes here, and you find some bump, small bump, gone. So because people will ask me, how can you say the things are in conscious mind? But immediately after the class, at least it is there in conscious mind. Okay, I will accept your proposition that it is not even a conscious mind, it has evaporated totally. I can understand that, no problem. But immediately after class, something will be there, not entire class. Few things will be there in your mind. That won't come to help. That is how people always tell us. All the people who don't attend classes, they always tell us this thing. you are studying since 10, 15 years, but your anger has not gone. Then what your Swami is teaching you? Like that, they do like this hand also, and they tell, oh, what are you teaching? And therefore, I'm better. He says, I'm not studying and I'm better than you. That also he will say. And therefore, and that is true to the extent that Shravanam and Mananam is not enough. Your doubtless knowledge, and perhaps you may be able to give a discourse also on Aham Brahmasmi, will not be helpful. That's what it is. And so, fear, anxiety, everything. I am free from. Swamiji said, I don't do any transaction. I am just merely a presence. In my presence, all this Jnata, Jnaya and everything does this Vyavahara. This body does all activity. Mind does activity. And the senses do all the activity. I just don't do. They are all non-separate from me. They are all basically mithya thing. There is a transaction between them. I am just limitless consciousness which is ever present. Don't do anything. I am ever silenced. Everything. This class is over and immediately some anxiety comes. Yeah, I have to go by 6 o'clock and still that person has not come and this and so immediately anxiety starts. Children will come, I will have to prepare food now and Swami continues till 5:30. He has to finish by 5 o'clock. I am going to request for tomorrow, Swami. Okay, make the class early now. Anxiety. So where it has gone? Class was over just 2 minutes ago. Things are there in a conscious mind. No help. I'm trying to prove my point. That is basically. So all our responses comes from subconscious mind. And of course, prarabdha being what it is, it always brings varieties of the situation, bad news, worst news, worst news, etc. And Vedanta does not come to help, and we want Vedanta comes to our help. And so we should be able to respond to the situation from what to so what. So basically we are giving a response right now. In absence of Nididhyasanam, we give a response of this type. What? Huh? Like that. What? Like that. So from there, after Nididhyasanam, the response will be like this. What? So what? So what? That is what. You know that so what and what story. I don't want to repeat that story. Pujya Swamiji's story, what and so what. Anyway, so so basically the response of what will be lesser and lesser. To reduce that gap between what and so what, Vedanta should sink into innermost level, that is subconscious mind. And so we have only way is to dwell upon the teaching which is clear to you again and again. That's Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana means dwell upon the teaching again and again. That's all. To make it sink into subconscious mind. To the extent. Swamiji, when should I stop Nididhyasanam? That you tell me first. Before starting, I want to when it should end. Okay, that also I will tell you. Even in a dream, any situation which you think of, suppose like a worse situation is arising. Even in a dream, your response is so what? If it occurs, then don't do any Nididhyasana. Just move around. Eat well, drive well and enjoy. That's all. All job is over. Because definitely in a dream, response comes from just subconscious mind. Waking state, conscious mind is there. But in dream, all the responses come from just subconscious mind because conscious mind has resolved. And therefore, basically, this Nididhyasanam is to dwell upon teaching again and again. I am going to talk about Nididhyasanam today and tomorrow something more. Importance of Nididhyasana. Of course, verses are there. So when you make a fresh building, they say like that. Nididhyasana is like a curing, they say, to make it more strengthened. What? Your teaching. So when fresh building is constructed, they make an RCC flooring or RCC, terrace or something. They do curing. Means whatever as the material is there, whatever they have constructed should set properly and make will be strong. So well, Nididhyasanam they consider, for that they have sprinkle water and everything, you know very well. So same way here Nididhyasanam is a curing. In this well, of course, basically we strengthen our teaching so that it will be helpful in giving a response. So in Nididhyasanam we don't learn anything new. That's the first thing. And whatever we have learnt we are trying to digest, and then basically of course that practice alone will definitely transform our personality. And three things are there before Nididhyasanam. After successful Nididhyasanam they reduced what? First thing is a frequency of reaction. I am giving an example. Suppose I have done Shravanam Mananam, and perhaps I may continue because I like it. I may continue also. And but at the same time I am getting angry in a day several times. Several times. After successful Nididhyasanam, well, definitely frequency of getting angry will be less. Should be less. That is the first thing. Second thing is intensity of the anger. We can take any reaction. I am giving example of anger. Intensity of this anger also. Whenever I get angry, even all the neighbors also come to know. I shout so much. Immediately I burst, they call. I burst into anger. Well, that intensity of the anger also after successful Nididhyasanam gets reduced. Third thing, recovery after anger. No, some people get angry and they remain angry throughout the day afterwards. No, this is recovery from this anger also should be faster. And so intensity, frequency and recovery of the reaction, any reaction, anger, or it may be a greed, or it may be something else, hatred, or it may be a jealousy, whatever, definitely they come down basically. And so this is the benefit of the Nididhyasana. It is considered, and this is called Jivan Mukti. This is called Jivan Mukti. There is nothing else other than this. Anyway, this Nididhyasana is stopped here in verse number 32 to 42. And basically Nididhyasana is just a mental exercise, and as I told you, it is dwelling upon the teaching. Now, how many ways are there to do Nididhyasana? I am giving you, there are 5 ways you can do. First is, you can do repeated Shravanam itself is a Nididhyasana. That is the first kind of a Nididhyasana. Repeated Shravanam. Same thing. Keep on listening and listening. Don't get tired. Then initial Shravanam definitely will be helpful for bringing the clarity in my mind regarding the subject matter of the Vedanta, regarding Atma, nature of the Atma. And then later Shravanam will be definitely Nididhyasana, in which as you listen, let the teacher use the word Atma, Brahma or whatever. You always think, you replace that word Atma and Brahman etc. by I. And the teacher is teaching, you are just sitting, but your entire mind is whatever he is teaching regarding the self, you connect it to yourself. That is very, very, very effective Nididhyasanam. As you sit alone in without these classes etc., you cannot sit for 1 hour thinking about nature of Atma. It's impossible. But in a class, you can just sit there. So that repeated Shravanam itself, especially the later part of the Shravanam, later means after a few years, definitely the Shravanam can become for the person a Nididhyasana. There's one way of doing Nididhyasana. Second thing is reading the books. Reading the books on the Vedanta, especially reading this kind of a books, Prakarana Grantha may be there, or Upanishad books, or Bhagavad Gita, etc. that itself becomes Nididhyasanam. And that to this portion, reading Shastra means, of course, Bhagavad Gita has discussed values, etc. Or Bhagavad Gita has discussed Karma Yoga also. Bhagavad Gita has discussed Ishvara also. And description of Vishwarupa also is there. Daivi Sampatti is there, and what kind of a food you should eat, all this. Now that is not Nididhyasana, you can understand. But suppose you are listening or you are reading a portion of the chapter 2, especially from verse number 12 to verse number 25. Well, and as you are reading, you are replacing word Atma, etc. There Brahman word is not there. Word Atma is there. Then all the words the word like Atma, etc. you replace by I. So when Bhagavan says Nitya Sarvagata Sthanu, Achaloyam Sanatanaha, etc. Well, he says I am Nitya while reading. See, what is the advantage of a reading is, well, without book, suppose book is not there. Then if you say in your mind you are thinking I am Nitya, you will not go ahead. I am Nitya, but what is that Nitya? Oh, I am timeless, Swamiji. What is that timeless? Oh, let me see the note. Then that's how reading itself. Well, definitely proper way of reading. Some people have a habit of completing the books, of reading also. Some people in a day they sometimes read 100 pages. Next day they read 10 pages, and third day they read 1 page, and fourth day read 20 pages. Not that. Take a portion. Take just one verse, or even in a verse of just few words. Nitya Sarvagata. That's all. And read again and again, replacing the word Atma. Never in Nididhyasanam, word Atma, please listen, word Atma should be totally discarded. Swamiji, how can you say like that? You have too much boldness. No. Here you will see from verse 32 to verse 42, you will not find the word Atma at all by Shankaracharya ji. That's how I am saying you. Atma, the word Atma and the corresponding thought will be like a third person. Atma means something third person. That is not going to help. And therefore replace the word Atma by I. And you can do while reading. That is up to you. You can do it. Now the third thing is discussion among co-students. That's very good. In America I find many groups are there, and it's wonderful. Except only drawback in the certain groups is, sometimes a discussion goes to, haywire. It goes to some other direction in which the very purpose of discussion doesn't remain. Everyone will stick to their own views, etc. And it ultimately becomes like a very bitter situation. Also, sometimes it happens. It should not happen, but unfortunately, it is happening. And we should carefully avoid, especially the group leader has to be very careful and very, very alert person, and he has to bring all the people back into the discussion. And well, one can do, but this is also a good way of doing discussion among co-students or whoever comes. Swami Chinmayanji says, whoever comes, offer a cup of coffee. Even if he says, no, I don't want coffee at this time. But you have to take coffee. You have to drink, and by the time she makes a coffee and it will be served and he drinks, 15-20 minutes you have got. So what you have read or heard from the class, tell that person. And this is making a victim, and this is just by the way. So this is the third way of doing. Fourth is transferring the teaching, like we are doing right now. That is also a way of Nididhyasanam. The person, especially a teacher, can assimilate this knowledge. Teacher has a very good opportunity. Of course, somebody asked me, Swamiji, what is the advantage? Well, being a sannyasi, etc. Sannyasi has not to focus in any other thing except learning and teaching. That's adhyapanam and adhyayanam. That is the main thing for the sannyasi to assimilate this knowledge. So this is a fourth way of doing. Fifth way is a writing. So you can make certain notes. Like certain verses, I know you have a by heart also. And like Nitya Sarva, many people I have seen, so many people. Some people have a verse, from chapter 2 they have certain verses they have by heart. They know orally. Or 15th chapter or 12th chapter. But especially I request you, if you are seeing a chapter, Bhagavad Gita study, etc., if you are doing, especially oral, you by heart all this verse 12 to verse 25. Just wonderful thing. And this is enough. We need not have to, we are not to, we are, as Vivek Chudamani, Shankaracharya ji says, well, you by heart few things and then tell others orally, and then they will feel, oh, this person memory is so much and all that. That's a silent entry of a samsara that will lead you to a very, very dangerous situation. And well, so we are not interested in to show others that see, I have so many verses I know by heart I have. But for our own sake, when you want to write notes, if you have a verse, well, you can write how I am Nitya, how I am Sarvagata, how I am all pervading. Swamiji said something about all pervasiveness. And what he said, you better note it down. While you are noting it down, you are assimilating the teaching. Writing notes also is a very good way of assimilation. So this is whatever I am showing you different ways. Whatever is convenient to you, you can adopt. And Bhagavan also said in Bhagavad Gita, Tat Chintanam, Tat Kathanam, Anyonyam, Tat Prabodhanam. Etadeka Paratvam cha Brahmabhyasam Vidur Buddhaha. So Buddhaha Viduhu. The wise people will definitely tell this. Brahmabhyasam. Brahmabhyasam means Nididhyasana. Abhyasa on Brahman, Abhyasa on self means basically repeated, avrutti of, so dwelling upon the teaching again and again, we can say. Tat Chintanam. So well, Tat Chintanam. Tat means here Atma. Atma Chintanam. Tat Kathanam. So in a group. Anyonyam Tat Prabodhanam. That is the discussion in a group. Tat Kathanam means teaching. Like teachers are teaching. Tat Chintanam is dwelling upon. And dwelling upon will be in form of Shravanam, repeated Shravanam, reading Shastra, writing notes, all this will be called Tat Chintanam. Etadeka Paratvam cha, this is how. So you are committed just to the nature of the self, dwelling upon it again and again and trying to assimilate it. Now all these Nididhyasanams are there, but there is another way, other type of Nididhyasanam which is called Samadhi Abhyasa, in which basically you sit in a place quietly. You choose a right place, choose a right time, and sitting in a certain posture. And of course, that Bhagavan has discussed in chapter 5th chapter and the initial verses of chapter 6 also. How to sit, etc. And all these things here Bhagavan has discussed. And you have to sit erect, and this, the head and neck and the spine, etc. should be in a one line, etc. Have a perpendicular to the base. Base should be a little broad, etc. And you should use asanam, etc. And choose a time and place in which you won't be disturbed. That's how for a certain women, of course, they are working, it's a different thing. If they are not working and other people are working, then definitely in morning she cannot do, because she has a lot of anxiety. Naturally, she has to prepare a few things here and there. And so for her, the right time would be perhaps when they go to work. Could be that kind of a time. Or early morning time, whatever is. But the time in which basically you need not have to, shut down your senses. Even, some of the senses you cannot shut down also. Like this ears. You may say, I will plug the earplugs, etc. into that, etc. And I will close my eyes, etc. But apart from it, the senses will have definitely a contact of the world. Totally you cannot be, blunt to the world. So that's how the right time would be when the world is sleeping and you are awake. And that's not night time. Night time where definitely there is a lot of tamas. You are tired also. And so early morning is considered a very good time, but that's just by the way. I am not prescribing any time for that. That depends upon person's own daily activity, depending upon that. So this is Samadhi Abhyasa. Bhagavan also, that in chapter 6 we call it as a Dhyana Yoga. Bhagavan is talking about this kind of a meditation, Samadhi Abhyasa, in which a proper place is chosen, a time is chosen, and a proper posture of the body also is chosen, etc. In Mandukya Karika also, Gaudapada Acharya ji talks about this type of Nididhyasanam only, Samadhi Abhyasaha. And I have told you the other Nididhyasanam, types of Nididhyasanam, but this is really very important. If you are asking me, Swamiji, what out of 6 which will be important, I would say this Samadhi Abhyasa is very, very important. That type of Nididhyasanam will definitely help you faster in assimilating the knowledge. And Shankaracharya ji also, in this verse number 32 to 42, where Nididhyasanam is talked about, well, he is also talking about this Samadhi Abhyasa Rupa Nididhyasanam. Okay, now let's go to verse number 32. Dehanyatva me janma jara karshalayadayah shabdadi vishayai sangah nirindriyataya nacha. So I will give you few details in every verse. All verses are very important. If you want to by heart, you can by heart also. Only 10-11 verses are there, and just Anushtuk Chanda also. It's a very simple word, meter. So one can by heart, and then that can help you for Nididhyasana. Now, first thing he says is Deha Anyatvat. Deha Anyatvat. First, see this fact. Very first thing in Nididhyasana is I am not the body. Now here Deha Anyatvat can be taken both the ways, or all the 3 shariras you can take. Deha Anyatvat means Sthula Deha Anyatvat, I am distinct from the physical body. Sukshma Deha Anyatvat, I am distinct from the subtle body. And Karana Deha Anyatvat, I am distinct from the causal body. Of course, but what Shankaracharya ji did is he has taken a physical body and part of the subtle body in verse number 32, and part of the subtle body he has taken in verse number 33. So we will also make a part of the subtle body, and we will discuss that way only. So well, only 2 things we will discuss here. I am not the physical body, and I am not the senses. Out of the subtle body, we will take out that senses, etc. Because he talks about nirindriyataya. So he is talking about indriyas, etc. So I am not the senses, I am not the physical body. Now what are the tips which you should have to develop on that I am not the physical body? Let's talk about that. Why it has been told like this? Because generally I take in this physical body, I have an eye sense, and so in everything else other than the physical body, of course, I have this sense. But like a cloth which is very close to this body, well, of course, in that also I do not have eye sense. So I never say I am a cloth, and well, I take as this cloth. This is the way you have to think. This is what I am telling you. I am giving you the points. Like you have memorized this verse, and well, and then the first thing appears that Deha Anyatvat. You are sitting in some posture, sitting in a good place and a good time, and you have remembered the verse, and the words of the verse is this: Deha Anyatvat. I am distinct from physical body. Now, what is ahead? You have to think. And so when Swamiji, but does not come, nothing comes in my mind. I am not physical body. That much comes. So I kept on that japa in the Nididhyasana. I am distinct from this physical body. So I am giving you few points. You know, but I am trying to bringing into your memory. So think like this. Well, in this physical body, I have a eye sense. Basically cloth is also there along with the physical body, but in the cloth I have this sense, and therefore I am not saying I am this cloth. Okay, so nobody has this kind of a confusion that I am the cloth. But when I touch my body, when I touch your body, let's say that way, you have to think also that way. When I touch your body, well, then you do not feel my body, physical body is touched. Instead, you feel that I am being touched. First, we have to make ascertain that I and physical body are equated totally. That we will have to think first. So I feel I am touched, and when this body is walking somewhere, it is not that somebody else is walking. I say I am walking. If the body is tall, I am tall. If body is fair, I am fair. If body is old, I am old. So, well, body has some disease, well, I say I am having a disease. If body is fat, I am fat. If body is lean, I am lean. If body is here, I am here. If it is not that the body remains here and I walk away from that. It's not so. So I do not leave this body. So where the body is, there I am. Therefore, when the body sleeps, I sleep. When the body stands, I stand. When the body walks, I walk. When the body is lying down, I am lying down. And therefore, whatever the body does, I do. So I am the physical body. In Nididhyasanam, you have to think like that. Because to make our understanding clear, first we have to think properly that my experiences, all these experiences which I have described to you, they all prove that I consider the physical body as I. I am this physical body. So when somebody asks a question, who are you? Well, the answer should be, I am the physical body. Right? Nothing else is me. So when the body is healthy, I am healthy. When the body is born, I am born. When the body perishes, I will perish, etc., etc. But this conclusion, tell yourself like this, this conclusion is too hasty. Too hasty. Tell yourself 3 times, this conclusion is too hasty. Because in Nididhyasana, you have not to tell loudly, otherwise in the family members also will think, what has happened to this person? So think this way. Well, this conclusion that I am the physical body is too hasty. It is. When I say I am old, well, definitely, it is not because this body is old. Ask yourself. When I say I am old, is it not that, this body is old? Do I know this old body or not? You have to ask this kind of question. Well, if I do not, do I know this this body is old or not? If you say no, well, yeah, I do not definitely know, then how do you say I am old? If you don't know this physical body is old, how can you say I am old? To say I am old, you should know that the physical body is old. Am I right or wrong? Because otherwise, whenever you are physical body is old, and therefore you are saying I am old. Anyway, so I know that this body is basically old. Well, and I know this body as I know. Now think this way. I know this body which is old as I know the sky in the front. I know the trees in the front. I know the moon in the front. Same way I know this physical body. Just as I know the moon, just as I know the trees, just as I know the camera, same way I know this physical body. That's how physical body is old, but I am saying I am old. Okay. So there is a mistake occurring. There is a confusion. And so when I see a old, suppose an old tree you are seeing, very old tree. Swamiji, since we have built this house, before that this tree was there. So you know the old tree. So when I see a tall or an old tree, I do not say I am old. Say to yourself, when I see a old tree in front, I don't say I am old. But when I say, when I see the body, physical body is old, I say I am old. Right? That is the difference. When you see a tree which is old, you don't say I am old. But when you see this physical body old, you say I am old. Well, so this is another thing. So this physical body, like a tree which is in the front, is also an object of knowledge. Because I am old definitely is based on, this experience is based on I know the physical body as old. Since the physical body is old and I know this physical body, I am able to say I am old. Just as the tree is old, but I am not saying that I am old, and I know the tree, old tree, same way I know the old physical body. But why am I saying that I am old? I don't know. But there is a confusion. There is a confusion. That much you have to say. Now second thing, in this only, my physical body is as good as a object of knowledge as any other physical body. This is also a physical body. This is all, say like that in your mind. This is also a physical body. This is also a physical body. Both are made up of elements. And I know this other physical body as old. And I know this physical body also as old. In fact, I know my physical body much better than I know others' physical body. Say that way. In mind, huh? Basically in mind everything you say like this. And so visualize some old person and then say, well, I know this body is old. Same way I know this body also is old. That body is object of knowledge. This body also is an object of knowledge. In fact, compared to that physical body, I have much more knowledge about this physical body. I don't know whether that person has a knee pain or not. I don't know that person has a stomach ache or not. I don't know that person has a headache or not. I don't know the person has a back pain or not. But I know this body has a back pain right now. I know that this body has a headache right now. So compared to that physical body, this physical body is a clear object of the knowledge. I have much more knowledge about this physical body compared to any other physical body. Could you follow what I am saying? Or you can visualize this thing also. Compared to that person, I have a more knowledge about my body. That way also you can say. Compared to that person, I have much more knowledge about this physical body. Right? And therefore, it is very clear that the physical body is an object of knowledge. And and based on that, you have all the statements. I am lean, I am fat, I am old, etc., etc. I am emaciated. Shankaracharya ji says, Janma, Jara, Karshya, Layadaya, Janma, etc. So the birth, etc., the Jara also. I mean the old age, Karsham. Karsham means emaciation, etc. And all these things. I am all other things also are, we can say, well, I know the physical body is a male physical body. I know its height. I know its a stage of life like grahastha, etc. I know its complexion. I know its weight. I know its color, etc. So many things are there. So all this in several aspects, the physical body is basically an object of knowledge. You have much more knowledge, clear knowledge about your physical body compared to any other physical body in the world. And therefore, if any other physical body you are saying it's an object of knowledge, why are you not saying this body regarding which you have a much more knowledge? Why don't you say that it is an object of knowledge? Tell to yourself this way. Why I am not saying that this body also is is an object of knowledge? Well, I don't know, but I don't say. And so I don't know is a better answer, because there is ignorance. There is a ignorance. Anyway, so this physical body is as good as object of knowledge as any other object in the world. Just as I know any other thing in the creation as object of knowledge. Same way I know this physical body also very well, and therefore that is also the object of knowledge. Anything which I know in the creation, I don't take it as a myself. I know the camera, I never say I am camera. Same way I know the physical body, I should not say I am physical body. Right? This much. So this is where you have to think. Deha anyatvat. Well, I am distinct from this physical body. I am conscious of the body. I am having a knowledge of the body, etc. etc. Okay, second thing is Indriya. Indriya also, well, the second jump from this, see, you have to connect these two things, physical body and senses. Once you say, well, physical body is an object of knowledge because you are able to see the body, you are able to touch the body, you are able to smell the body, you are able to taste the body, and you are able to smell the body, right? And so basically, well, so that is how it is an object of knowledge. Okay, but then I am a seer of the body, I am hearer of the body, I am toucher of the body, I am smeller of the body, I am taster of the body. Okay, fine. Physical body is an object of knowledge. I understood very well because I am able to hear it, I am able to see it, I am able to taste it, and therefore definitely like any other object I am able to see, hear, touch. Same way physical body is also subject to hear. It becomes an object of hearing, seeing, touching, tasting, etc. etc. But I am seer, I am hearer, I am toucher, and therefore I am sense organs. Right? I am sense organs. With respect to eyes, I am seer. With respect to ears, well, I am hearer. With respect to, the organ of, sense organ of touch, I am toucher, etc. etc. So I am sense organs. That is how I am telling you I am seer, hearer, etc. And so I am sense organs is another conclusion. Well, this conclusion is also again not true. We have seen that you cannot be the eyes because you know very well the conditions of the eyes. You know your eyes better than eye specialist. Better than eye specialist. Yeah. Eye specialist comes into the picture when you describe your eyes. Otherwise he cannot. First you have to tell. He will ask you questions and you have to answer about your eyes. And then at that time eyes become an object of knowledge for you. Whether you are able to see or you are able to see one where there are two, or whether you are able to see two where there is a one, etc. whatever. Or you are not able to see in the night, or you are able to not see in the very bright light, or whatever. You have to narrate your eyes. And therefore it is very, very vivid object of knowledge. All the sense organs are basically object of knowledge, and therefore I am the knower, well, and of the sense organ. So the way I am knower of space, I am knower of the trees, same way I am knower of the physical body, I am knower of the senses. Now, other things are discussed, that will come in the next verse, but before that let's finish this verse. So here it says, Deha anyatvat name. If since I am distinct from the physical body, I am not physical body, and also I am I am not born. Janma, Jara, I am not old. Karsham, I am not weak. Layam, Layaha, Marana, well, I don't die. They all belong to the body. So the birth, old age, weakness, this death, etc. all belong to the body. Well, it's an object of knowledge. I am subject. I am the knower. They are object of knowledge, and therefore, well, their dharmas, their attributes do not belong to me. And then you extend it to your dear ones also, because that is also very, very problematic. And so, immediately, since if you take yourself as a physical body, you will have a worry about your family members immediately. So because you are connected, somebody is your son, or somebody is your daughter, or somebody is your husband, something, or somebody is your wife, whatever. or somebody is your grandmother, father, mother, etc. All these things. Ultimately, when you say I am physical body, they all are related through the physical body. And so once you say I am object, I am, this physical body is an object of knowledge, well, definitely all other relations also, won't remain. And that is what is happening in deep sleep state when you don't claim yourself as a physical body. All the relationship also, dissolve. They are just sleeping in the same room. But you are not connected to anybody in the person who are sleeping. So basically, definitely say that I am not the physical body and therefore I am not related to anybody in the family. That is also, you have to think that way, because that brings a lot of worry into your life. And so, but Swamiji, he or she has this kind of a prarabdha. Yeah, prarabdha brings a situation, but prarabdha belongs to the physical body, not to me. If I am not the physical body, prarabdha does not belong to me. And others' prarabdha also belong to others' physical body, not belong to anybody. So anyway, and then say Shankaracharya says Shabdadi Vishayaihi Sangaha. This also very, brings a suffering in our life. Shabdadi Vishayaihi Sangaha. So connected to the various objects. Well, if you are connected to various objects in the world, you are always connected through the senses. And through the eyes you are connected. Through the ears you are connected to the words. Through the eyes you are connected to the forms and colors. Through the nose, through the nose you are connected to the certain objects of smell. Through the taste you are connected to certain objects of taste. And through the sense of touch you are connected to the objects of touch. So all the objects in the creation you are connected through the senses. And so Shabdadi Vishayaihi Sangaha, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Objects of all this, definitely you are Sangha, you are connected, through the senses, but you are not the sense organs. That's how we have taken. Nirindrataya, Nirindriyataya. Shankaracharya says, I'm not I'm not having any sense organs, or I am not the sense organs. And therefore, basically, both you can say, I am not having any sense organs, or I am not the sense organs. And therefore, because they are also objects of knowledge, and that is very clear, they are instruments of knowledge as well as objects of knowledge, and any sense organ, I can talk about my sense organs. And therefore, definitely, if I can talk about, I experience them, I know them, and therefore, definitely, they are not me. So, that way you can say, and therefore, you will save yourself from suffering. Why? Because you hear certain words. Suppose somebody has uttered insulting words for you in your presence, and since you consider yourself as a hearer, connecting to the sense organ called ears, those words will make you feel insult. If you are not connected to sense organ, if you don't have eye sense in the sense organ, definitely whatever the words are heard, even by the sense organ, you will not take it on you, definitely. And therefore, and same way, these are the words, certain forms you don't want to see and you have seen, or certain smell you have undergone which you don't like, certain taste you have a distaste for the certain objects and you might have tasted, or like that, certain touch, etc. also. So, Shabdadi Vishayaihi Sangaha na bhavati. Na, Shabdadi Vishayaihi Sangaha na, it is not, and therefore Nirindriyataya, because I am basically free from sense organs. And that has been told in Mundaka Upanishad very beautifully. Yattad adreshyam agrahyam achakshushotram tadapani padam, etc. etc. So achakshushotram, I don't have any eyes or ears, or I am not eyes and ears. And apani padam, I am not having any hands and legs. I am limitless consciousness, and therefore definitely I don't have any kind of organs of action or sense organs basically. And so you will be free from the suffering, seeing something, hearing something, or touching something, smelling something, tasting something, well, a certain, suffering arises in your mind, you will be free from that once you say that I am free from sense organs. Okay, so this is verse number 32. This is the way you have to do meditation, nididhyasana, etc. From verse 33 we'll see tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Now what